This is an overview of the final project for Lit 322. This past several weeks, we have been looking very closely at 3 contemporary novels, and now you're at the point that you will compose a final comparative essay. It's a literary analysis of the 2 novels, and I wanted to just share some thoughts based on the rubric of what the goals and the requirements are. It says in this assignment, you'll analyze the themes, you'll connect trends, you'll use literary and cultural analysis to find a common bond, and create a work that focuses on the themes. So when we go through the prompt, it reminds you that this is kind of a literary paper. It should be formal in tone and obviously have research to support it. So let's get into the details. First, it says you're going to prepare a 5 to 7 page paper. That 5 to 7 pages should be of text. That should not include the title page or the reference page, the works cited. So it's important. You select your 2 works that you're going to analyze, either Gone Girl, Hunger Games, or The Road. You also need to select 2 literary devices, symbols, metaphors, imagery. We've talked a lot about this throughout your outline and your proposal, and hopefully you're feeling very competent in the choices that you've made. If you are still weighing what your devices are, there's a website here, but I would particularly encourage you to choose devices that you are familiar with, that are recognizable easily in the novels that you've chosen. And then you need to create a thesis. There's a thesis example right here. I'm not going to read through it, but it's very good. It shows you how they have chosen a specific device, which is the use of ghosts, right, which is kind of symbolic. And they've shown how it's used in 2 stories. And then in the end, we get that final thesis, the theme of cultural haunting in Donald Duke and the Gala Singer becomes a reconstructive agent functioning as a means of cultural translation, a vehicle for the reestablishment of history and tradition. So we know for some reason in this paper we're about to read that ghosts play prominently in the ability to communicate past and perhaps tradition, or the past and the future. So let's look a little closer at the elements, and I will include some resources on each of the elements, meaning the introduction, the body, the conclusion, and the integration of sources. So there are handouts on each of those, but I want to just touch briefly on the introduction of the essay. You should introduce each of the novels. You do not need to summarize the entire stories of the 2 novels within the context of this paper. We do not need a 1.5 page summary of each of the stories. We need a brief 2 or 3 sentence, perhaps, giving us the main, capturing the main plot and theme of the story. And then it should also tell us why that theme was chosen, what its relevance is, and then your thesis statement, as we saw in the previous, just above this in the rubric. Your thesis statement should have the names of the 2 novels, the authors, the common theme, and the devices that reflect or support that theme in both books. As we get into the body and how we craft it, there are really 4 areas that you want to look at. Many of you in your outlines have already embraced a very good organizational tool of looking at one device with one story and then looking at another device, the same device in the second story. It's kind of an A-B way to approach the composition of the essay. You can also do A-B in a paragraph, A-B in a paragraph. It's possible. So there are different ways to approach a comparative essay, but it is often very easy, and when I say easy, easy for the reader to follow when you do a little deep exploration of survival in the Hunger Games and then survival on the road, back-to-back paragraphs offering some contrasts and similarities. So you've got the literary analysis, the compare and contrast, the supporting evidence. Be sure your evidence is very clearly tied to the element that you have chosen and the theme. Just because a piece of evidence might be appropriate towards the survival, it might not really if you're talking, the symbol of fire and your evidence is about food, it doesn't mesh. Also, when integrating evidence into a paper of this sort, we look for more integrated quotes. What we do not want to see, what is not the best practice, is block quotes, paragraphs from the books. It is not necessary. You can paraphrase, but the quotes should really be integrated, meaning they should be short bursts within the context of one of your ideas. And then when we move to interpretation, a couple of things. It is really a place where your ideas, which are most important, are allowed to blossom based on the item, the evidence, the device you've chosen. And here's where you add some perspective. Again, in the order of the body of the paragraph, we go to the old kind of pie structure, pie being what's the point or your topic sentence, the information, which is your evidence and support and how you explain that, how you bring that out. And then the perspective is how you interpret that, how you show that it has cultural, contemporary, historical significance. Finally, in the conclusion, it's important not to feel like you're just being redundant. You should not introduce new information in the conclusion. That doesn't mean it has to be 100% redundant. You should restate the thesis with the literary elements. You should remind the reader of the main points that you made within. This is a chance to kind of underline or sum up. If you were making a speech, and it was, a 30-minute speech, at the end, you would probably repeat your main points. What do you want the audience to take away? So again, we want to look very carefully. The writing, obviously, it should really be in third person point of view. It should be free of errors in terms of grammar, style, tone, all those things, syntax. There are many resources to help you. And if you're uncertain, you can reach out to me. But generally, that is the essence of what the paper should be. I'm not going to repeat all this, but I want to just show you again in the rubric specifically, if you wonder where your assessment comes, the thesis statement is 10 points. If the thesis statement has all of the required criteria, the names of the books, the theme, the literary devices, and why they all coalesce to create a popularity, then you would earn an exemplary if it's concise and clear. Any element that's missing is a reduction in points. If the thesis is spread out throughout an entire paragraph, that's not really a thesis statement. In the body, again, we see that's worth the analysis, and that is how the piece relates to the theme. That is worth 20 points. The compare and contrast is worth 20 points. Be very specific. Tell us how it works, how this device works in Gone Girl and how this works in Hunger Games, how they are the same, how they are different. The interpretation is that adding a perspective and the more detailed look at commercial success, significance historically, things that influence the book. And then finally, in the conclusion, that's 10% in the writing mechanics. So you can see it's pretty well divided. And hopefully you have had plenty of time to gather your thoughts over the past. If you have any questions this week, I encourage you to contact me. I'm here to help, and I look forward to reading your papers. Take care.